Supplements are one of the easiest ways to extract more performance out of your brain. But this isn't a list of untested herbal supplements. I carefully put together a list of supplements that have been tested on humans, and I focused on studies that were designed to minimize bias. And if you're like me, you're not in this for a quick boost. You want to build a brain that performs year after year, not just today. So in this video, I'll be breaking down the supplements that actually move the needle for cognition. But make sure you stay till the end, because some of these you might actually already have at home, but never have thought about supplementing them. Quick disclaimer, I am not a doctor, and this isn't medical advice. Always make sure to consult a professional before supplementing. For the longest time, I always thought that cognitive supplements were a waste of money. I honestly didn't like the idea of paying for something that I didn't even know if it worked. In fact, the first cognitive supplement I ever tried was Alpha Brain by Onnit. And I took it for a while in college, but I noticed no difference. So that made me very skeptical of cognitive supplements from then out. But recently, over the past few years, I started experimenting. After thousands of supplements consumed and lots of money spent, I can confidently say this: supplements are the closest thing we have to pay to win for human performance, but not quite in the way that you'd imagine. That being said, I want to be honest upfront. Supplements can be expensive, but for me, I see them as investments in my future health and cognitive ability. Whether they're worth it is up to you, but I'll make sure to include brands that I personally like, and I'll make sure to include the pricing for that as well. I also want to quickly mention one very important thing. That is choosing the right brand, because 80% of the brands out there are quite literally scamming you. I mean this quite literally. They are either underdosing things, using proprietary blends, or using less bioavailable / cheaper forms of ingredients. So it is very important to choose the right brand. Now, before we get into supplements, I want to give an honorable mention: sleep, diet, and exercise. I know, so boring, but these move the needle far more than any supplement ever will, especially sleep, which is wildly underrated. I can bet you right now that better sleep beats any supplement you will ever take. Generally, getting good sleep, diet, and exercise looks something like this: 8 to 9 hours of sleep, getting a variety of foods daily with 0.5 to 1 gram of protein per pound, and training at least 5 times per week. If you do that, you are already supercharging your brain for the short and long term. Supplements only amplify a strong foundation. They don't replace it. Now, for your first step in your supplementation journey, you should aim to fix your deficiencies first. Stuff like vitamin D, magnesium, zinc, etc. If your vitamin or mineral levels are suboptimal, your cognition will suffer a lot. Previously, I was mildly deficient in vitamin D, but the symptoms were very noticeable. I was constantly lethargic. I was getting sick all the time. That lost time and that lost energy definitely adds up really quick. 2 weeks a year doesn't sound like much, but over a decade, it adds up a lot. Magnesium and zinc are two other very common deficiencies. Now, I make it a habit to meet my daily recommended intake. For me, that's about 400 milligrams of magnesium, and for zinc, that's between 10 and 40 milligrams. For vitamin D, if I'm not getting regular sunlight, maintaining with a supplement is key. I personally like Nordic Naturals 1000 IU plus vitamin K2. The reason why the vitamin K2 is in there is so that it can help direct the vitamins and minerals into the bones instead of it just flowing around in your soft tissue. There are tons of other things humans can be deficient in, but those were just the top 3 that I could think of at the moment. 2 good ways I figured out what vitamins or minerals I was missing in my diet was first getting blood work done, and second, downloading the app Chronometer. It is kind of a pain to constantly log everything, but just try to do it as often as possible and you will find all the holes in your diet. All right, so the second supplement we're going to be talking about is omega-3s. Unless you're eating fatty fish like salmon or sardines multiple times a week, omega-3s are very hard to get through diet alone. That's why we supplement them. Omega-3s are probably best known for heart health, but there's growing evidence that they improve mood, they reduce symptoms of depression, and they can lower inflammation and oxidative stress in the brain. There's also evidence that people with low omega-3 levels consistently show higher rates of depression and mood disorders. However, taking omega-3s isn't something that's gonna make you superhuman. To me, it's more of a long-term play. I'm a big believer that having a positive mood results in you making better decisions. And the better the decisions you make, the better the life that you have. For omega-3s, I personally take Nordic Naturals Ultimate Omegas, and I personally aim for around 2,000 milligrams of fish oil daily. I will admit, these supplements are very expensive, but for omega-3s specifically, there is a huge variation in quality. When you go cheap, you usually get unsustainably farmed fish with tons of heavy metals, and by the time they get to you, the fish oil supplements are already rancid. If you are looking into fish oil supplementation, please definitely look for third-party testing. The next supplement we're going to be talking about is ashwagandha. Ashwagandha is an adaptogen, meaning it helps you regulate stress better rather than directly stimulating or sedating you. Most of the research around ashwagandha usually focuses on stress, anxiety, cortisol, and sleep quality. Research suggests ashwagandha may help reduce cortisol, especially in chronically stressed individuals, improve perceived stress and anxiety, support better sleep quality, potentially improve focus, indirectly by lowering stress and mental overload. This is important because chronic stress doesn't just affect your mood, it affects your recovery, sleep, motivation, and even cognition. Lowering baseline stress can make everything work better. Ashwagandha isn't something that you feel immediately like caffeine. It usually works more subtly over the course of a few weeks with consistent use. When looking for an ashwagandha supplement, I like to look for a standardized extract, something like KSM 66, not just raw ashwagandha powder. The most studied extracts tend to be standardized for compounds called withanolides. Clinically studied doses tend to be around 500 to 600 milligrams per day of a standardized extract. When looking for an ashwagandha supplement, I tend to look for single ingredient or very simple formulas, KSM 66 or other standardized extracts, and third-party testing because herbal supplements can vary a lot in quality. Ashwagandha isn't a cure-all, but if stress, poor sleep, and chronic fatigue are limiting you, then it can be a great foundational supplement, especially paired with sleep and good recovery habits. One more thing I want to add for ashwagandha is I have heard anecdotally that cycling on and off helps a lot, so that's just something to keep in mind. Our fourth supplement is creatine, but not for muscles. Nowadays, there's more and more research coming out saying that creatine isn't just for muscle gain. Beyond muscle performance, research shows that creatine can actually help reduce mental fatigue, especially during sleep deprivation, and improve certain memory tasks, especially in people with lower baseline creatine levels. Your brain uses ATP just like your muscles, and creatine can help replenish it. This makes it especially useful during cognitively demanding or stressful periods. As a young man, I aim for around 5 grams of creatine per day. When looking for a creatine supplement, I am looking for creatine monohydrate as a single ingredient product. Creatine monohydrate is the most researched and well-backed version of creatine. I also personally look for third-party tested CreaPure, which is greater than 99.99% pure and made in Germany. compared to others, which aren't as pure and are usually made in China. Now, these next two supplements I didn't even know could help you until I started researching this video. Number 5 is blueberries. Yeah, that's right. The humble blueberry. The idea is blueberries are rich in anthocyanins, which are a powerful antioxidant that has been linked to improved memory and reduced cognitive decline. Studies suggest that regular blueberry intake may improve recall, support learning, and protect against age-related cognitive decline. Think of blueberries as a long-term brain insurance. It's not really a stimulant, but it's a protector. I have been eating about a cup of wild frozen blueberries with my oatmeal for about a year now. And while I will be honest, I haven't noticed any difference, I plan on continuing to eat these frozen wild blueberries just because they will protect my memory in the future. You can also look at 25 grams of freeze-dried blueberries, a blueberry powder, or even other dark berries. Our 6th supplement is saffron. Yes, the spice. Saffron might sound surprising, but it's actually one of the most impressive natural mood-enhancing supplements out there. Research shows that saffron can improve mood, reduce symptoms of mild depression, and support emotional resilience. In some studies, saffron performs similarly to pharmaceutical antidepressants, but without all the heavy side effects. I personally haven't started saffron supplementation yet, but I would definitely give it a try just to see if there's any noticeable difference. I will definitely be looking for a standardized extract, something like Afron, and I will stick to about 30 milligrams per day because that's what the scientific literature points to as the ideal dose. Our 7th supplement is L-Tyrosine. L-Tyrosine is an amino acid that acts as a precursor to neurotransmitters like dopamine and norepinephrine, the same chemicals involved in focus, motivation, and stress. What makes L-Tyrosine interesting is it doesn't do really anything when you're relaxed and well rested. Where it shines is under acute stress. Research suggests that L-Tyrosine can help maintain cognitive performance during stress, improve working memory and mental flexibility under pressure, and reduce performance decline during sleep deprivation, cold exposure, or multitasking. In other words, L-Tyrosine can help you hold on to cognitive performance when conditions aren't ideal. Unlike caffeine, L-Tyrosine isn't a stimulant, meaning you won't feel wired from it. It's more like the fuel for systems caffeine and stress tend to drain. For dosing, most studies use between 500 and 2,000 milligrams, taken 30 to 60 minutes before a stressful or demanding task. I personally wouldn't take L-Tyrosine every day. I see it as a situational supplement, useful when you need it, but unnecessary when you don't. When choosing an L-Tyrosine supplement, I personally look for just L-Tyrosine, not N-acetyl L-Tyrosine or NALT, which is less reliably absorbed. I also like to look for single ingredient or simple formulas and third-party testing. If you are exhausted or stressed, L-Tyrosine is definitely a good option to look at. Now we're on to number 8, the king of nootropics, caffeine. I feel like we all saw this coming, but I do want to add some things that you might not know. Caffeine is special because unlike most on this list, its effects are purely temporary, but undoubtedly powerful. I think of caffeine as rocket fuel, not daily nutrition. Caffeine has the power to dramatically increase focus and alertness. It has immediate performance benefits and can provide some neuroprotective benefits, with studies linking it to reduced rates of Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. But there's a catch. More isn't always necessarily better. Around 400 milligrams per day seems to be the upper limit. Beyond that, performance drops jitteriness increases, and cognitive test scores usually decline. Chronic use usually leads to dependence, and caffeine withdrawals can definitely ruin your day. Personally, I only use caffeine on days that I actually need it. For me, that is usually less than 3 days per week, usually within a 3 to 5 hour window, 1 hour after waking up. That protects sleep, prevents tolerance, and keeps caffeine powerful for when I actually need it. There are actually 2 ways of using caffeine. There's the herbal coffee route, and then there's the caffeine anhydrous route. Neither is better than the other. It's just personally up to you. Herbal caffeine sources tend to be a little more mild and also a lot more varied in their caffeine content, whereas caffeine anhydrous tends to be more consistent but hits a lot faster. I personally take between 60 and 200 milligrams of caffeine anhydrous. When used correctly, caffeine has the potential to be the biggest cognitive enhancer on this list, but used carefully, it becomes pointless or even dangerous. Now, as a bonus, here are 3 extra supplements that I would keep an eye on. Number 1 is alpha GPC. You've probably heard about alpha GPC all over the internet. Mechanistically, it makes sense. It increases choline availability, which is important for acetylcholine and cognitive function. The issue is, while there are a lot of mechanistic and animal studies, there's currently limited evidence from high-quality human trials with healthy individuals. Most of the strongest human data we have right now is in populations with Alzheimer's disease, not in healthy young individuals. Number 2 is huperzine A. Huperzine A works by inhibiting the enzyme that breaks down acetylcholine, which increases the levels of this neurotransmitter in the brain. On paper, it sounds promising, but when you look at the data, there isn't a lot of evidence showing clear cognitive benefits in normal, healthy adults. Most of the research again focuses on neurodegenerative conditions rather than everyday cognitive enhancement. Number 3 is rhodiola rosea. Rhodiola has been used traditionally for centuries and is often marketed for its mood, stress, and anti-fatigue effects. There are some human studies suggesting benefits, especially under stress or fatigue, but the overall body of research is still small. It's not a magic supplement, but it's definitely one to keep an eye on as more research comes out. The thing is, supplements won't turn you into a genius overnight, but if used strategically, they compound over time. If I was to start from scratch, here's what it would look like. First, I would optimize my foundation with sleep, diet, and exercise. Second, I'd get a blood test and download the Chronometer app to fix any deficiencies. Third, I would take creatine, fish oil, and blueberries daily. Fourth, I would use caffeine and L-Tyrosine with intention. And lastly, I'd experiment with ashwagandha, saffron, and maybe some other promising supplements. But anyways, I hope you found this useful, and if you did, please consider subscribing. Until next time, see you in the next one.